Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Building Our World podcast. Today I had the pleasure of being joined by Patrick Da Silva, the CTO of Berlin-based company Staiy. Now, Staiy is the first sustainable fashion marketplace, basically merging aesthetics, sustainability and AI technology in one place. In today's episode, we talk through Patrick's really interesting journey to how he became the CTO at Staiy, how he looks to manage his junior team. Then, in the second half of today's episode, we delve quite deep into recent advancements in AI, including GPT-3. And then also we go down quite a rabbit hole when it comes to AI's role in social media, something I always enjoy doing. Now, Patrick is an incredibly hardworking, passionate and smart guy. And we went into a lot of depth for you, and I hope you get some great value from it. Okay, it's Saturday afternoon and we're live. How are you doing today, Patrick?
I'm great. Yourself?
I'm doing awesome.
Thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it.
It's going to be a fun way to spend our Saturday afternoon. Always like doing it. It's better to do it sometimes at these times because you're more relaxed, your mind's more free.
Exactly.
And, you can kind of explore and expand on ideas. Because when I first messaged you, it was like, I think it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you'd been on calls for like 4 hours straight. And I tried to grab like a slot at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. That was taken. You've definitely got like a hectic schedule and you're the CTO of Staiy, and we'll come on to that later, sort of go into the details around that. But you have this CTO title. But what is it that you actually do day to day, and how would you describe your role?
Yeah, it's a good way to start this thing, because I kind of grew onto that title. Like I didn't like ask for it or didn't get it offered. It's a bit of a story. So basically, first of all, I'm in Germany. I'm in Berlin. I moved to Berlin 7 years ago for my master's studies, and then I started a PhD. And I was doing well during my PhD, but I kind of ran out of money halfway through because I have two herniated discs in the lower back. They were pretty expensive to treat, and they gobbled up much of my credit margin. So I paid it with student loans. And at some point I was like, okay, financially, I won't make it. Like, it doesn't matter how much I work. It's just like money is money. So I started looking for a job, and I figured like I was going to be like a software engineer somewhere. And then it took me actually 13 months to find my first job. Like, it really took a long time because I came from an academic mindset and I had a pretty stubborn head. Like in my head, everything has to be done perfectly, otherwise don't do it. So yeah, for a very long time, I didn't have a job.
Really?
Yeah, it was really painful. Like I tried to become like a game dev for 4 months, and then I realized there was too much art in there. Like I wasn't using enough my brain. I was using more my art skills, which I like, but not enough to work full time. And then I went to blockchain, and I even made like 2 interviews, and the buzz in blockchain is just so intense. I couldn't deal with it. Like the hype around it and everything.
What people that are just, if you're in blockchain, you're just absolutely obsessed with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're obsessed with it, and also blockchain isn't past the part where like raise the value of your coin and sky is the limit. Like actual applications on top of blockchain that are mainstream, it's not there. It's not quite there. The technology is worth something, but that's for another day, for another discussion. So yeah, about 2 months in, I decided to not do that. And also, like, one of the things that attracted me there was, I come from a math background. I did algebraic geometry, and some encryption algorithms rely on that field of mathematics. And so I thought, okay, I'll be really good at it. And then, like, 1 month in, I was like, okay, actually, like, I learned all this theory around blockchain, but at the end of the day, you code, like, 99% of your time in some predefined language where all the math stuff is abstracted away. You don't see any of it. So I felt a little bit like I was starting from scratch, and to compound that with the hype thing that really turned me off, I was out. And then I found data science. And I liked the fact that we're building statistical models that you needed some geometrical interpretation, intuition to be able to build. Made me feel really comfortable. So I went into that direction. Together, data science, machine learning. I had a pretty strong background in statistics, pretty strong background in AI. I mean, like in the algebraic and geometric part. So I went for that. And actually, my first job was not as an engineer. It was with Entrepreneur First. So I was trying to build a company.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like I got it out of the blue on LinkedIn. I didn't look for it. So yeah, I tried that for 2 months, and 6 weeks in, I was like pressured to found something, and I was like, okay, like now you're asking me found a big tech team worth $1 billion, and I don't even know how to code yet. So I said, okay, guys, next time. No, not for me this
Yeah.
time.
One thing I find with that entrepreneur first thing is that they message a lot of people of your background on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
In one of the earlier episodes, it was an EF graduate, and they just messaged him. And one thing I think it's great, and it's produced a lot of good companies. But there's something uneasy about almost like forcing it. You're like forcing an idea or like forcing a company, and the best ones are always the ones that just grow at the right time. And
No, I don't think they're forcing it. They just like I can tell you like basically how I felt about the people there. Like I think that the people that go there, they have a strong incentive to like a personal incentive to just build something new and break barriers and disrupt. You know that big buzzword. They really try. They really want to change something. They just don't know what, or they don't know with whom, because some of them have a really clear idea of what kind of person
yeah,
they want to work with. They just haven't found them, or some have a really clear idea of what they want to do. They just haven't found the right person, and some of them have no clue whatsoever. But they definitely have to drive, and I think that's the most important part of building a company like this is to really, really want to do it, have the right environment around you to do it, and I think that's what Entrepreneur First creates. But back to the story. So yeah, basically this was a bit too early for me, I think. But I wouldn't have figured it out if I hadn't done it. So I think it's worth it anyway. And ironically enough, my second job was also in a startup incubator. So I was at a startup incubator by Hella. It was really a good learning experience because they basically gave us budget every 3 months, and we're basically allowed any idea that the investors would go for. And yeah, if they said yes, we had budget, we could try it. And then if it succeeded, we would keep going. Like if the prototypes would be okay. And if they weren't, then we just, killed the idea and moved on. And like having done something that was worth killing was not a reason to be fired or something like that. It was just like, you tried, we noticed some obvious flaws in that idea that we wouldn't have figured out if we didn't try it. And then, okay, like that's it. And so actually our first idea, we pushed it for like 12 months. And after a while, I just realized like I learned a lot, and I liked the experience of learning how to code, especially because my partner that was going to be I was going to be the CTO, he was going to be the CEO of the company that we were building in the incubator. My partner taught me a lot. Like he had a lot of experience in web development because he developed for mobile for 6 years. Like it really, it was really big learning experience for me. I just didn't feel like it was going to happen. Like this company, like the environment we put ourselves in, the things that we built, there was a gut feeling in me that just told me like there's something missing, So I left, and then I kept looking for something else, and that's when I found Staiy. So like I'd been trying to build something big for a while, but I didn't find Staiy just because I'm looking for a CTO position, Like my first job after the incubator was like I was trying to find a position somewhere. And an intern from the company we were trying to build at Hella basically was also looking for a job. And then when he applied at Staiy, instead of getting a job there, he recommended me. So I talked with Staiy, and then I realized that they were very early stage. They wanted a machine learning engineer, but their budget wasn't quite there, and I had other offers on the table. So initially I said, like in my head, I said no. And then what basically ended up happening is that I told them, look, I don't have a job yet. but you guys have a really interesting company. And if you don't have the budget to hire me, then, we can make a compromise where I work for you on a lower pay. And then if I find something, I just go. Like no 2 weeks notice, I just buy, So that's what we did. I ended up staying with Staiy for 4 months as a machine learning engineer. And as I was there, like there was a lot of things happening in the company. I mean, the company got founded February 2019, and the founders are not technical. So they were trying to build a big website. There was a backend. There was a machine learning model. They built the data set themselves. A lot of technical topics that they were not, let's say, literate with because of their very different background. But they had an extreme motivation and they were raising a lot of traction. So I was basically supporting them out of my own free will. I was like, okay, I'm there as the machine learning engineer, but look at what you guys are doing there. Like, this is probably not the right way to go. Maybe you should do it this way. Or, oh, wait, these guys are not serious. Like, this is not, like, you're being messed with right now. And I was basically like a consultant and a machine learning engineer, but consultant more in the web space. And then around December, like I wanted to continue with the guys, but they were always promising investment, and promising means they're fighting for it, but they don't know if it's there yet. So in the meantime, they keep trying to keep me on board until the investment happens. And then in December, I told them like, look, I'm at the end of my credit. I cannot hang in any longer at this salary, so to speak. So I had to take another job. And that's where I worked in consultancy for 6 months. But it was again in the automotive industry. And yeah, like 6 months in, and like you realize like in the software industry, you work sometimes like 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Sometimes just out of your own passion, but also sometimes because there's deadlines and there's a learning process in what you're doing. And you feel a bit guilty that, okay, this is my learning time. So there's a 40 hours that's work and there's a 30 hours that's learning. And if you consider in your head that the 30 hours of learning is like not your job, then you're basically sitting in front of your computer all the time. So yeah, I mean, I was kind of burned out at the end. And it was like a 6 months probation period. And at the end of it, the company and I just both looked at each other and said, look, this is not working out. So we parted ways, and I sort of joined Staiy almost immediately because I told him, look, I think I'm worth more than that. You've seen it. You've had me, and then you've had not me, and you saw what happened. So do you want to have me again?
Yeah, had me and you lost me.
Yeah. So they basically welcomed me back with open arms. And then, yeah, that's when they realized, like, okay, what title should we give you if you're not just doing machine learning, but you're also doing web development and dealing with our external partners, and okay, let's just call you CTO. Like, that's it. So that's how it happened. Yeah, it's not like I applied for the position.
Yeah.
But
I suppose all that experience along the way probably made you equipped and qualified for that. One thing that was quite interesting to me listening to that and doing my research before as well, you were there for a long time in a really early stage company, putting out sort of fires, messing around with the technology and helping the founders out a lot on, not the best pay. So what is it that's made you really buy into the company vision and to put in that time and to really put yourself out there? Because a lot of people would just take one look at that and just apply to one of the big tech houses in Berlin and get a much, much better paid job.
Yeah, I mean, I had a good pay when I was at Hella, and I had a good pay when I was doing consulting. And a good pay takes care of your bills, but it doesn't take care of you. So, like, I was doing good money, and my debt was being paid slowly but surely. But mentally, I was exhausted. Yeah, and I think the reason why so many entrepreneurs can make it through, like, all the amount of work that they have to do and pull in crazy hours and get the job done, it's not because they're well taken care of. It's not because they're being massaged on the weekends or because they have nice streets or like nice smoothies or whatever. It's because they really love what they do. They have a strong motivation to go in the direction that they're going. It's not just someone pushing them comfortably that direction. Is that they're actually wanting to go there, and you can't create that. You can't buy that. This has to come for yourself. You can help someone get there, but you can't tell them where to go. And when I met the guys from Staiy, I remember like the first meeting ever that we had, all of them together. We actually went to a vegan restaurant where we tried like a Beyond Meat burger or something, and we just talked about like a bunch, like regardless of the job, like we just talked about a bunch of topics like vegetarianism or the environment or pollution in general, and how the industry is contributing to that, and how we wanted to do something in a different direction. Not just them, me as well. Like, I mean, I tried something before, and one of the reasons why I was kind of not motivated to go there is because it wasn't aligned with some of my goals personally. And like having that conversation just made me feel like, okay, I want to stick around with those guys. Like they're going somewhere. So that's one thing. The vision was really, really something. But a vision without success means nothing, right? So
Absolutely.
I had to see something happen. And I mean, I definitely saw some problems like in any startup. I mean, I built one myself. I know what problems look like. But the things that really got me motivated is that there was, when I started at EF, they started on week 1 and they said you have to find a hair on fire problem. Hair on fire problem is basically like your customer comes to you and their hair is on fire and they're like, please solve my problem. Yeah. Like if you find a problem like this, everything would run smoothly, because whatever you do, if you fail, it doesn't matter, because their hair is still on fire. You still have to solve the problem. They're still going to come back for you for more. And it's even better if no one else is trying to tackle that problem, you know? And so I really saw that hair on fire situation when we were trying to contact brands. So just a bit of context about Staiy. Like what Staiy is doing is that we have a website where we sell clothing, of course, but we don't actually produce the clothing or have a warehouse for the clothing or ship the clothing. We just serves as a big sales brand and a big brand and sales funnel for our brands. So basically, when a brand signs up to Staiy, they produce clothing, and sometimes they have a small shop somewhere, or they have a few shops, or maybe they're a bit bigger and they have their own website, and they try to basically get more sales. But we come to them and we say, look, we're focused on sustainability. We have a great network. We promote our brands on Instagram. We promote them on our website. We have, I mean, now, like last week, we had a webinar where we're promoting our brands. And so basically that's this aspect that you cannot have as a single brand, where your purpose is being really strongly put out there. And basically brands were seeing this and were like, okay, where do I sign? Yeah, I remember I was in the room once with our CFO, Alessandro, and he was just like on his laptop doing nothing. And then he was telling the guys like, hey guys, I just found this brand, like they're really nice. And I don't even remember which brand it was. But what I definitely remember is that 10 minutes later, it's like, oh shit, I got a response. They want to sign in. And so in 10 minutes, he signed the brand. It's like,
wow.
That moment was like, okay, we're onto something here. Like that is not normal. I remember like my usual sales process in my head, like the experience that I have with it is that a B2B transaction takes 6 months. You know, like you meet with the customer, you have like an initial meeting, a second meeting, a third meeting, and then you discuss the product. They want to see an MVP, whatever. Like, no, it's in 10 minutes, like sign here. Okay, you're in. And so that's basically why we have 120 brands today. Yeah, it's that traction. I mean, the guys are not magicians. It's just that the problem is so big that companies just line up to work with us. And
120 brands.
Yeah.
And that's what you started, Staiy started last year and during 2020 as well. That is some pretty impressive growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, last year, I think at the end of the year, we were somewhere around 50 brands.
Wow.
And in the sustainable space, it sounds like there's 1 million of them. Yeah, because that's the other topic. Like we're looking for brands that have a strong sustainability component. It was no small feat, and it makes your life really easy when you're working with guys that have these kinds of results and this kind of drive, because basically you're putting your energy in the right place.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. That is good. I mean, sustainability and like the eco mindset and everything like that is definitely in fashion now. Mm-hmm. That could have some real kind of exponential growth. You're so right about the long sales cycle as well of B2B. It is usually around 6 months, creating a prototype, getting feedback. It's such a long
I
process.
know, I went through it. I was trying to build a chatbot, and then after our first chatbot, they were like, okay, we want to see a second chatbot. And then we were about to sign a contract where they wanted 3 chatbots. And in the end, all the AI was removed from the chatbots. They just wanted like windows and interactions, but no AI needed for this. And I was just like, okay, so we spent 6 months trying to sell this to these guys, and they don't even understand our product. Wow. Yeah, this is hard. Like, and it's not like we lacked motivation. I mean, I was still pulling in my 80-hour weeks and my partner as well, and we had all the effort we could get and also the money for it. But yeah, it's hard. You know? So yeah, when the hair on fire problem is there, it's like you can get a lot of things wrong, but people stay in. And when people stay, that's when you basically buy yourself the time to fix your problems over time, and you grow and build something big. If that's not there, you're going to fail, and then people are just going to drop.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy, hair on fire.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Actually, they pushed the analogy even further. Like, they basically said, like, if you find a client with a hair on fire problem and you give them a brick, they're going to smash themselves on the head. So, yeah, that basically tells you how much room you have to play when you find a problem like that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So coming back to like the present day now in your CTO role that you've described. So what are you doing, at the present time, week to week, day to day? How does your role look and your working week look?
Yeah, back to that question you initially posed, right? I just framed like a 20-minute context around it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So actually, when I started in July, I was basically solo because the company was big. We had I think something like 10 departments at the time. And the company grew since, but like people were taking care of different stuff like Instagram, social, like the Staiy official Instagram management, like doing live Instagram and sharing posts. And I still have to learn Instagram. I plead guilty. I don't know enough.
You got to get on it.
Yeah, or the ECRM department or the finance department or the sustainability department. Like we have a bunch of departments like this, and they're growing pretty fast and big. And one of the reasons they were able to grow so big is that some of the tasks in there, if you have a lot of motivation, you can learn on the spot. So when COVID happened, we had like an insane amount of people that were just like, I'm sitting at home, I need something to do, everything is depressing, please give me a reason to live. And then we had like an army of interns just flooding towards us, and they were like, okay, we're going to help you guys. You have a mission that's worth following. And our company has been running on people like that for a long time. So that's been incredibly boosting, and that definitely contributed to Staiyy's growth. But coming back to the tech, so because of that, like the difference between tech and the other departments is that there's a high barrier to entry in terms of the amount that you need to know before you can start in tech. So I cannot just get that. I cannot just get a nobody that knows like Microsoft Excel and then say, okay, now you do Python. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. So actually for a long time, I was like, no, intern's not going to work. And we had a lot of problems with the existing tech because when I started with Staiy, I was only doing the machine learning model. But we had like a hell of a time trying to integrate that in the existing stack that we got from a third-party company. So one of the things I told Staiy when I joined was, okay, if I'm going to integrate that model, we're going to have to rebuild the entire stack from scratch. And from scratch doesn't mean that I like blind myself to the old code and I just like go my own way. I mean, of course, I built on what's there. But a lot of it had to be redesigned and rebuilt, and because it wasn't stable enough for scale and customizations and additions and improvements and whatever.
How much? Sorry to jump in.
Yeah.
When you say building sort of a tech stack from scratch, I've helped recruit for companies that are doing that and have put software engineers into that. But as a non-tech person myself, how much work is it to really build a tech stack from scratch?
I'm figuring it out. Yeah, I mean, when I was building my previous companies, I was not building an entire web stack. It was just more like, okay, I have my model and I put it behind existing like software. Like, for instance, I wasn't building my chatbot window. I was just like grab something from the internet and I would plug my model behind it or something. But really building something from scratch. I mean, like the way it works right now is that we have the main website, so staiy.com. We also have a B2B portal, which is basically where our brands sign in and then they put their products. Maybe they use like Shopify or WooCommerce or one of those like e-commerce integrations. And then they upload their products. Maybe they customize their image a little bit, like they have a cover picture or like some descriptions of their products they can add. And then we also have a CMS website where the people of like the employees at Staiy can go there and customize the landing page or the search pages without having to code. So they can just like change the images or move the building blocks around so that I can leave the designers to their job and I don't have to code all the time. So yeah, there's 3 websites and there's a backend that manages everything. And then there's a database behind it. You have to deploy all of this on some cloud infrastructure because we will never host this. I mean, like we're in 2020. So yeah, I mean, it is a lot of work. But I think that one of the reasons why it took so long was because it takes longer to build, to rebuild something that exists than to build something from scratch. Because if you build something from scratch, you have complete freedom and you have no business restrictions whatsoever. The business can adapt because it's not there. But if the business is there, then basically you're trying to build something under the constraint that it has to, like, you're building something under the constraint that it has to retrofit to the existing business. And that makes it like 10 times harder because you have to think like, okay, actually I know how to do this part, how to fix this part of the problem. But if I do it now, then this will take me a week. And this is a week that I need to spend on something else right away. So you end up not just managing the development of the product, but also the tech debt that you're accumulating while focusing on one part rather than the other. And so you sort of have to build it in a way that the business can adapt at the same time. And that makes it extremely tricky. Yeah.
Okay. So with these interns then, are they like computer science grads, juniors? What sort of skill set are they bringing from day one? And how, if they are sort of from university, what's the transition like? Because I know studying computer science at university is very, very different from commercial sort of software engineering. So how's it been coaching them through that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I mentioned about the insane traction, that's part of what helped with this. I mean, at the beginning, I didn't even believe in having interns. I was like, no way in hell I'm going to teach someone like 40 hours a week. Because I had the experience before and it's not fun. Like in the end, you have to micromanage and it's very time consuming. And if I'm in a position where I'm going to offer something to a person just to help me, it has to actually help. Yeah. So that's the big trade-off that you want to go for. And you want to make sure that it pays off, because if you spend like 10 hours talking to someone and then you end up with no line of code, then yeah, why are you spending 10 hours on this? So I really didn't believe in it, also from my experience. And then I just said like, okay, I'll put an ad out there. And then if people buy in, like, I'll see what comes out. And so I talked with our HR and they put an ad for a React developer and a Django developer. And we got over 50 applications. Yeah.
Wow.
So like, I didn't expect that. I mean, last ad that I put in my startup, I got like 2 replies or something. So yeah, that was pretty big. So I had a big pool of candidates to select from. And so basically I just looked at the most promising ones. Miguel, one of our front-end developers, he was actually a kitchen manager before. And then he spent like 1 year learning React in a full stack developer bootcamp. And yeah, then it was just like, okay, it's this thing now. And he said like, I'm putting everything into this. This is my new passion now. I really love what I'm doing. So I was like, okay, I'd love to teach you. Like, I mean, how could I say no to that? And I saw his code as well. That's a good thing these days. Like, you can see their previous work firsthand. And like, if it's bad, it's like, it's right in your face. So yeah, I believed in him from day one. And the same for our other web developer, Arjun. When I interviewed him, I had just seen like maybe like 10 minutes before the interview, he had built like an Amazon clone. So you could go and like look at your products. There was a search filter. you could go to checkout, and then he actually integrated Stripe. So you would make a test API call to Stripe for the payment. So it was like, wow, I don't know how to do Stripe. Maybe you could do this later. So I mean, like meeting guys like this, you're just like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah, and back inside, I also got Cecilia. She has a PhD in marine environmental sciences, and she was like, I'm bored of my job. Because of COVID, we actually don't have a lot of work, and I want to do something else. And I learned Django. Look at my project. And she used like geographical data. Like in terms of database, it takes a while to figure out because I learned this myself when I was at Barrels, and it's like, yeah, dealing with geographical data is not easy. And she already like had a live project set up that I could just like go on the website and try, and it was something like computing the quality of soil from satellite images. So they were just looking at satellite, and they had a model that would determine the quality of soil just by looking at it, and you could see it real time on the website based on the data she collected. So like, okay, nice. So yeah, she's basically working on setting up our AWS stack for this new tech stack that we're building. And so yeah, I got those interns just by posting the position, and I was just like, wow, working with those people is just like so much easier. So at the beginning, I was building everything myself. I ended up being like a manager. Now I'm like on Jira, and I give them tasks, and we talk on Discord, and yeah. So I spend some time in meetings. Just explaining them a little bit what's in my head. But once they understand it, I can leave them for like 1 or 2 days with no conversation, and they just come back to me and like, oh, I have a PR, oh, I have this, oh, I have that. And I'm just like, oh no, now I have a lot of work to do. But it's been really motivating, like working. So basically, at the beginning, I was doing everything solo, and I was trying to organize my code, like like one branch and just like 100 commits. And now it's more like tons of branches, reviewing PRs all the time. But it's definitely more productive, and I really enjoy it.
It's so rewarding as well in your role to get that return on your investment, to see people grow in their role as well. How do you see the future of your position, and also the future of your career? Because you've had a pretty crazy journey, to be honest. Like it's been you've gone kind of this way and that way, but it's all kind of come together at this time to give you this quite unique skill set. How are you looking to build on that in the future?
Well, I don't think it's done being crazy, to be honest. What I'm hoping is that since I spend so much time trying to get it right, that at some point it's going to be like that. I mean, I remember when I was at my startup incubator at Hella. So I was a driver in this mobility co-working space, and I was seeing all these companies growing around me, and some of them would just fail, and some of them grew super big. One of them was Tier Mobility from the e-scooters, and when they arrived, they were the first client of the co-working space, and they started like, okay, we need 5 offices, and then they looked like 80 people in, and then like what I think it was something like 1 year, and they were like, no, this is too small for us, we need something bigger. And I saw the speed at which they scaled, and like how much traction they got, even though they had to fight regulation, which is a problem we don't have. Like I feel like when people do it right, like there's a long like incubating period where the rewards of your efforts are unseen even by yourself, and then at some point something clicks, and then that's where like the first big thing happens, and then it just goes upwards from there. I would say in all the other departments of the company, it's already been clicked. Like it's already growing really fast. I see some actual traction, and that's what got our latest investor to believe in us. But in the tech department, it hasn't happened yet, and I think it's like the last building block of the company.
Yeah.
So once that part clicks, that's when sales will start coming in at a much higher rate. That's when we're going to start putting more innovation into the company. That's where the tech department will start interacting with the rest of the company as well, because right now we're sort of isolated to make sure that we can grow as fast as possible, because we need that. So I think that's really what's next. Like in the next few months, I'm thinking somewhere around Q2 next year, these problems from the tech department will just finally go away. And then we're going to start being able to just grow in a sustainable fashion. No pun intended. Yeah, so that we can basically like have something a bit more stable and, like grow the team, see where it leads us.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
In tech, there's such a barrier to entry, obviously in terms of skills,
Mm-hmm.
but also when it comes to money and the investment you need and the hours you need to put in beforehand, as you said, to get a return on that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
You almost need to work to a place where you start to get that almost exponential return. I feel like in tech and tech companies in general, it's very hard to grow in like a linear fashion. You almost need that spark to get that sort of exponential return on your investments.
Well, I think it's a good thing. If you don't mind, I would like to expand on that. I think
Absolutely.
I think it's a good thing that that in tech that you don't have like a linear return on investment. Like I work 10 hours, I get a 10% salary raise. I go 20 hours, get a 20% salary raise or something. I mean, I'm dumbing down the numbers, but my point is that like if you start from the beginning, each hour you put into work basically returns nothing. Yeah. And I'm not talking about the financial part. I'm talking about the results. Like the first week you're going to work in coding something, you're going to end up with like the worst garbage ever. Yeah. Like maybe you have your IDE set up and like, okay, now I understand my IDE. Yeah. Okay. You have no result whatsoever. The only thing you can do is make sure you can open a file or something. And then the first like 6 months, like if I give you a new problem after that, then you can maybe solve it in a week. Yeah. And after the first year, if I give you the same problem, you can maybe solve it in a day. But 3 years down the road, you can solve 10 of those problems in 1 hour. Yeah? So there's an exponential gain of the return that you can provide with the experience. So it wouldn't make sense that with 2 years of experience, I pay you 40K, and with 4 years of experience, I pay you 80K. Like, if that's how it worked, then it wouldn't make sense from the business side, because you would pay your people with low experience so high compared to what you're getting, and the people that have actually all the talent and the experience to produce, you would pay them so little compared to what they're worth. So basically everybody would lose. Like interns would not find a job, people with a little bit of experience would have no place to grow, and the people that have actually grown would have nowhere to work. So I think it's a good thing that it's like that, but it's like bound to the nature in which building something intelligent works. And I'm just referring to the fact that humans are intelligent, not like AI or whatever.
Okay. One thing, and we haven't touched on it yet, obviously with your machine learning and data science background. One thing about the growth and advancement in AI, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, is that it's sort of exponential at the moment. It's growing a lot faster and modernizing a lot faster. We've recently had GPT-3 come out from OpenAI. I don't know how much. I know you're pretty busy, so I don't know how much you've seen or heard of that. But they've basically compressed the whole of the internet into these paradigms and created a pretty incredible algorithm that seems to be quite a major breakthrough. I don't know if you had any thoughts on what they're doing over there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was watching a video not so long ago, like a few hours earlier, and because I was in the natural language processing scene, if you want to call it like that, when I was in the startup incubator, because I was doing chatbots. And so basically, like the main thing we were doing is we have a language model that tells us how to convert words into vectors, and then we, like on top of that, we basically put any machine learning algorithm we want to build any kind of task we want. And one of the things we did was to put all kinds of sentences into, like, let's say 10 boxes, and then we program a bot to say, okay, if the message goes in box 1, then do this. If it goes in box 2, do that. And it was like a very simple technology, but still it can be very useful. Think of like what N26 is doing for their customers. You go into the chat and there's no one there, but if you just type something, then it's like, okay, we have 20 boxes. If you fit in one of the boxes, we give you the message, and then you know what to do. Like, it's a simple idea, but it works really well. And I think what GPT-3 tried to do was basically like, okay, here's the problem of understanding language. How far can we push the game of having an algorithm that can do language? And the gains from making your model bigger, they're always like disputable in the sense of like, sometimes you have a model that's like, I don't know, 1 megabyte big, and it performs really well. And then you think like, maybe if I make it bigger and I give it more data, it's going to perform better. So sometimes that's the case, sometimes not, because sometimes that's as good as it gets, because that's what's in the problem. The problem is not more complicated than that. And what I've understood from GPT-3 in comparison with GPT-2 is that basically the previous iteration of GPT-3, which was GPT-2, they tried to tackle the problem of understanding language.
Yeah.
And the model size was something like 1 billion parameters. And they basically just asked the question, like, what if we make it bigger and give it more data? What's going to happen? And they made it like 150 times bigger. And they basically got 150 times better results. So then the question arises, like, were they actually innovative, or did they just push an idea to its limit? And in that sense, I don't think GPT-3 is a new idea, but it's more like an optimization of an already existing idea, which was definitely worth doing in light of the results.
But is there, so in terms of like, it was some, you're right, it was like 175 billion machine learning parameters. And it can like generate faces from a text description, do essays. It can write, code a whole website in like a second.
Well, there's one thing there. Like, I don't think that comes straight from the model. Like, I think you have to plug on stuff on top of it, so that you're able to get those kinds of things. Because in the end, the model, it's not been trained to do all those tasks, or at least as far as I know. The way you usually do this is that you have like the big building block that solves like one problem. And that's the key building block to making this kind of technology possible. But then, I mean, you wouldn't build this if it were just to do like 10 jobs. You build it like in a generic way, so they can do a lot of things with it that you can plug on top, And I think those things, those examples that you mentioned, these are things that you probably plugged on top. But I don't hold myself accountable. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was built in. I would be surprised though.
Yeah. Okay. It does beg the question though, like, is there a limit to, if we say GPT 7 or 8, if we just keep putting more and more data into it, it's not gonna, it'll become more and more complex, but it wouldn't create sort of an AI that's got consciousness or anything like that.
I don't think so, because in the end, like, that's the problem that any AI algorithm has, is that an AI is just like a statistical engine. So you give it data and it produces the in some cases the most expected result, in terms of what it's seen before. So if you show it all of language, then it can produce language, but that's it. Because that's the problem you've given it. The fact that it can do other stuff is because humans take that model and then use that ability as a building block, and then they build other stuff on top of that. So I think that the big hype around AI is that we've never been able to harness the power of all the information that we had at such a scale. And it's really scary, because outperforming humans can be a good thing if you're like trying to help humans, but if you're trying to make money, then you might end up ripping us off in a really bad way. And that's why I mentioned the social dilemma to you, because
I watched it. It's
scary,
a couple
right?
of days ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm scared of my phone now.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, you should be.
I literally, I was in bed this morning, and like the TV was off for like 10 seconds. And I looked at my phone. I like couldn't just be alone with my thoughts. I couldn't face 10 seconds of just sitting in my bed, just looking at the walls. I had to literally like reach for it. And watching the social dilemma. It's anyone listening, it's on Netflix. 100% watch it. But it's
a perfect example of what I was trying to say. Like, in the end, they're just statistical engines. And in that case, the thing that they're trying to predict the best is what picks your attention. And so, like, this thing will not become superhuman and figure out how to build a robot from the computers in Facebook's silos or whatever. Like, they will not like just like turn metal into robots and then like go on the streets and start killing you, because we've given it a really clearly defined objective, and they're just striving through that forever. Yeah, or as long as we keep the computers on, let's say. And that's why they're so effective at grabbing your attention. And I mean, like, even when you're conscious, and that's the big point of that documentary, The Social Dilemma, even if you're conscious that the algorithm is doing that, it's so good at it, you can't avoid it. Really, the only way to avoid it is to like stop interacting with it. Like, just close your phone, throw it away, and never look back. Yeah, that being said, I still try to like be aware of it, and I think it's a nice thing that the documentary provides. Like, in the end, if they build this algorithm and they're making money with it, as long as they keep wanting to make money with it and no one wants to stop them, it's going to keep grabbing your attention no matter what. I mean, like, even if, like, it's like I said, even if you don't use the devices and the software that they do, they still find a way into your life, because people around you use the devices, and then they can grab other people's attention, and like, so basically you can be aware of the fact that you do that, that you're being like drawn to these things, and you can make certain choices, like not use certain software, or if you use a certain software, that you can develop some habits of like what you do with it and what you don't do with it. So one of the things that I do is that, even though like I like American politics, for instance, because I think it's like the biggest meme generator of all time. I mean, it's such a joke, right? Yeah. But if I only liked the stuff that made sense and that's progress for the American people, then I would just see this as a feedback loop constantly, and I would end up in my little bubble, because that's what I want to see and that's what grabs my attention. So I, like they mentioned in the documentary, I actually purposely liked stuff that I don't like, just to tell the algorithm like, oh, I like this too, just show it to me. Yeah. And then you get away from your bubble, because you basically say, okay, by if you think of this thing as a statistical engine, basically what it does is that, okay, if you like this, then you probably like that too, so I'm going to show you that. So all you have to do is just tell it what you like. And you don't have to tell it what you actually like. You just have to click the like button on the stuff that you want to see. So yeah, you can like stuff that you don't like, and then you're going to see it in your... And so basically that allows you to enlarge your bubble. Because if you think of the stuff that you like as being your bubble, then by liking stuff outside of your bubble, you make your bubble larger. Yeah. And then you end up seeing pretty scary stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm really into like my politics. I used to work in politics a bit as like an intern way back in the day. And I've always kind of said to myself, like, why is politics so divided now? Like, when I was growing up and getting into politics, it wasn't this divided. And like, it's divided in the UK, definitely in America as well. Yeah. And then watching that Social Dilemma, it kind of clicked for me that the division of politics and this, you know, you're either on one side or the other, has grown as social media has grown. There's a direct link. People can't talk to each other.
And there's a simple explanation for that. Yeah, like if you use devices that are grabbing your attention on the stuff you like, then you stop seeing the stuff you don't. Because you're being drawn to the stuff you like all the time. Why should you look at the other stuff, right? That's what your time is spent with. And then if you never see any contrarian arguments to the things you're thinking, then basically that becomes your little side of reality. And I don't want to get too meta, but like my interpretation of religion is basically what you believe in. Yeah. And like big religions are basically like commonly shared beliefs.
Yep.
And so by producing a feedback loop that just draws your attention to the stuff you believe in, and you just keep seeing it over and over, it really strengthens your vision of the world. And so anything that comes against that, people react emotionally and they just don't interact anymore. And so that basically polarizes an entire population. They cannot talk to each other anymore. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You can't, no dialogue can happen if you can't even hear what the other person is saying. And
Exactly. And that's what these algorithms do. They prevent that from happening because they lock you in your own little bubble.
so the danger of AI now, it's not that kind of preconceived, probably generic idea that it's going to come on, the robots are going to rise up onto the streets and destroy us.
No.
But it's humans and these big tech companies and social media. And, I'm not, these people that started these social media companies, they're not bad people, but it's
I don't think so.
this algorithm and what they've created and what this AI is doing is basically enabling us to destroy ourselves. We don't need robots on the streets.
I wouldn't put it in such an evil phrase. I think that in the end, it's like, imagine that I give you the power to do anything you want. And then you say, I want to do this. Well, one thing that you didn't think through is that if you do this, what happens? Yeah? And the world is such a chaotic place. I mean, there's billions of people doing whatever the hell they want to some extent. And if you throw like a big, powerful thing into the world has to change. The question is it going in the right direction or not? And if you take the example of Facebook, I mean, at the beginning, Mark Zuckerberg just wanted like a website where you can post a picture of your friends. And I even remember there was a phase where like his competitor was a company called like Hot or Not. And you could just post a picture of yourself and people would rate you. Which is like a really creepy thing if you think about it. Like it's cool to have that information, but it's not cool to like put that information onto everybody and put like a social pressure that everybody has to have that information. And if your grade is low, then you're basically just told constantly how ugly you are. And like that's the context in which Facebook grew. And then at the end, it became just like just allow the thing to survive because there was an emotional attachment and probably a financial one as well to keep Facebook growing. They pivoted to like, okay, we're gonna grab attention to sell ads as a business model. And then it would have taken like an insane amount of time to just figure out like, is that a good idea? Is that going in the right direction? Is that a good thing for humanity? And then, you can try to predict the list of pros and cons, or you can just do it. And that's what's happening right now with a lot of AI companies. Like they're thinking about so many problems they could solve with this technology. And they're like, okay, I can spend years trying to research if that's going to make sense for humanity or not. Or I can just try to solve the problem. And if it's a problem I'm passionate about, then, I'm going to solve it. And then whatever happens afterwards, I deal with after. And we're at a point where some companies like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, especially Instagram, in my opinion, gets really tricky to decide, like, is the business value that they provide worth the social harm that they're causing? And I mean, I'm thinking about this on a regular basis because, I mean, in the end, like our biggest, we're a sales company, we're trying to sell, and our biggest funnel is Instagram.
Yeah.
And if you see Instagram as what it is, which is basically like a place where you can brand yourself, there's a lot of young girls that brand themselves on Instagram constantly, and they compare themselves constantly. And there was an extract in that Social Dilemma as well where they talked about it. It's really creepy to see what that does to people. I mean, it's worth thinking about it. Like, what could we do better? I don't know.
It's interesting. One thing, because I'm 20, just turned 26 now. So I kind of grew up with social media, probably at the middle of school, and it just seems like normal to me now, completely normal. And to just be aware that this is an external thing you're looking at. It's an external force that you're interacting with, and it's not something that's part of you. I think looking at it like that can be really helpful.
I remember like 10 years ago, I was in a math class and a statistics class, to be precise. And it was like my first semester as a bachelor. And my professor said, like, to like a class of like 300 people, was like, 10 years from now, like the biggest, hottest job in the world will be statistician. So his prediction was basically right. It's just that we rebranded it as machine learning. And we put computers at work instead of having like guys design like theoretical ideas and do a lot of surveys on paper or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like and the reason for that is very simple: is that there's so much information being produced out there, and you can do a lot of predictions based on them. But I'm still scared of what people will decide to predict with this and what they will do with the predictions. That is still a very scary thing, because it's basically enabling anyone with a decent understanding of math to predict whatever the hell they want if they put enough time and effort into it. Yeah, that's why at least I'm happy where I'm at, because I know that even if I'm relying on social networks like Instagram or existing stuff that I might not be a big fan of, at least I'm driving in the direction of sustainable fashion. I mean, it's the second largest polluter in the world. We have a big problem right now. I just read an article 2 days ago on The Guardian that mentioned that the Arctic sea ice is melting enough that we're starting to measure methane released from below the permafrost. And that basically hints at an exponential growth of global warming.
Well, that's good news, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Just what we
So that's
need
what
in 2020.
that's what tells me, like, okay, like one problem at a time. At least put your focus and your heart in the right place, and hope for the best.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll be coming to an end soon. One thing I did want to pick your brains on. Obviously, you found yourself in this CTO position. Some people in software engineering, want to stay a software engineer their whole career, absolutely love it, and they're passionate about it. And they're some of the smartest people I know. But there will be some who like the added dimensions to a CTO role. What advice would you give to maybe a software engineer out there who has ambitions to be a CTO?
Don't. No, because I think that if you need help to become, like, if you need like advice or something on becoming a CTO, it's not gonna happen. Like, in the end, like, if you really want to be a CTO for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what I tell you, it'll happen. Because the biggest criteria of to become an entrepreneur is like an insatiable need for drive and purpose, and you're motivated, you're a bit insane also, and it doesn't matter what I tell you, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And these are the kind of people that succeed. If you need like an extra push of motivation, or if you need like an extra pat in the back, if you need this to succeed, then it won't happen. That doesn't mean that you won't get them if you succeed. Yeah, I mean, like, if you become a successful CTO, of course, people have helped you along the way. People have supported you. People have given you advice. But just make sure that you really like what you do and that you're totally driven about it. Because in the end, that's what distinguishes the people that succeed and the ones that don't. It's not, I mean, there's so many, like, I don't want to say like dumb, but like unskilled entrepreneurs that just like a crazy drive, and they know how to talk to people, and they basically surrounded themselves with people that want to go in that direction. And then it happens. Yeah, I mean, it's not about being the smartest, most talented guy in the world. It's about having the craziest drive and get people around you that want to go the same way. And you're never going to do it alone. So if you find a group of people that want to do the same thing as you, it's impressive what you can achieve. So, yeah, I think that's my advice in the end. Just make sure you want to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, one thing I realized about you is that you really do work hard, and an insatiable appetite to get everything done and to work.
And you fail a lot. That's the thing people tend to forget. Like, people think that after you failed like 10 times, it's like, okay, 10 times the charm, I need to stop. Like, well, that's why you need to drive, because when you have to drive, you don't even count the 10 times. You just say, it didn't work yet. What could I do better? And when you really have to drive and you know what you're doing and you see a reason why this problem you're trying to solve needs to be solved, then you don't count the no's, you don't count the failures, you just keep going. So that's the biggest advice you can get if you want to go in a position like that.
Fantastic. One last question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on kicking robot dogs?
Do whatever you want. They don't have a soul. You can rip
There
their
we go.
legs off. If they scream, it's been programmed. It's just meant to be funny.
Awesome. Patrick, you've been fantastic. I've had an amazing conversation with you.
Yeah, I really
And
enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
We covered a hell of a lot. And enjoy Halloween. Thank you so much for listening to the Building Our World podcast. To show your support and to stay up to date, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. Until then, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.